My Lords, I rise briefly to offer Green support for all of these amendments, and which have been so powerfully and comprehensively introduced. I'm not going to go over any of the same ground, but I do particularly want to focus on Amendment 2 in the name of the Noble Lord Cresp with full cross-party backing, and particularly one phrase in it which refers to safety, meaning the risk of harm arising from the location of buildings. Now, this in some ways might be seen to deliver the aims of two amendments that I tabled at committee that I haven't brought back at report, which were 132A and B, which delivered what's been called Zane's Law, targeting the issue of contaminated land and the risk of contaminated land may represent to residents and others in nearby buildings. Zane, of course, refers to, for those who don't know, the tragic child Zane Bangbola, who died and his father was disabled when flooding carried contaminants from nearby land into their home. Now, I just want to say that if we have a safe location for every building, then that would seem to deal with this issue. But going back when we look at the debate in report, and I note that on reports the Noble Lady Baroness Hayman of Ulloch very kindly offered support for these amendments in this direction, and what she said then, I think, really clearly sets out the problem. To quote, "If we can identify the size and scale in every part of the country where contamination is, that would be a very logical starting point to prevent future risk to life and support local authorities in tackling the whole issue of contamination." Now, the Noble Lady, the Minister, in responding at committee, suggested that the Building Safety Bill was not the right place to bring in Zane's Law because it would take the focus away from the environment and only put it on buildings. And I think the Noble Lady, the Minister, was right in that supposition, so that's why I haven't brought it back now. The Planning Bill, if we indeed see one, may well be the place to do that. However, where I disagree with the Noble Lady, the Minister, who was responding to my noble friend Baroness Jones of Molescombe, who very kindly introduced these amendments as I couldn't be present, the Noble Lady, the Minister, said that, noted that Section 143 of the Environmental Protection Act had been repealed but was replaced by Part 2A of the Environmental Protection Act 1990. However, that was a significant downgrading of the protection and the powers offered by local authorities. And I think it is worth looking at how that was further downgraded with what was known as the, I think now perhaps rather unfortunately titled, Red Tape Challenge Environment Theme Proposals from March 2012, which actually affected, downgraded, three-quarters of environmental regulation. And just to note that what that changes to the guidelines that came in 2012 said was that the changes were anticipated to save businesses £140 million a year by reducing uncertainty about when land needs to be remediated. Now, I think reducing uncertainty is a phrase that really needs to be re-examined and reconsidered. So I really want to commend all of these amendments, particularly I commend Amendment 2, focus on that issue of the location buildings having to be safe, and say that there's a great deal of regulatory work that would have to be done to deliver that, which would include delivering Zane's Law. If this becomes part of the bill, then that's something the government would have to look at. But this would be a big step forward if we really focus adequately on ensuring that no one has a home which, in this age of the Anthropocene, of the climate emergency, where new risks are emerging that weren't present before, no one has a home or indeed a building that's in a place that's dangerous.